We're going to revisit the Keynes liquidity preference framework, but this time with an open market purchase from the Fed. Again, in his framework, the quantity people can store their wealth in bonds or money. So we have the quantity of bonds that are supplied, the quantity of money that is supplied. We have that equal to the quantity demanded for bonds plus the quantity demanded for money. Rearranging, we get this identity. If the bond market's in equilibrium, this is zero, which implies that the money market's in equilibrium because the quantity demanded for money is going to be equal to the quantity supply of money when this left-hand side is zero. Okay? So we talked about in the previous video. So this right here is equals. We just mentioned it. If this is equal to zero, then this side is equal to zero, which implies the quantity demanded for money is equal to the quantity of money demanded. So, moving on, the interest rate in the market for money is going to equal the interest rate determined in the bond market. Again, that's what we talked about in the previous video. Okay. So, assume this is our demand and supply for bonds in a particular economy, right? This is the supply, and this is the demand. I copied my supply curve in here. I'm going to copy the demand curve in here. And the equilibrium price in this market is 894.5. I'll scroll it back up here. Delete all this stuff. So the price is $894.50. The quantity is 1,427.5 billion. So this is the quantity. And then the interest rate, using the rate equation in Excel, a 1-period bond. It's a zero coupon bond, so the coupon payments are zero. The price is a negative because we have to pay it in order to get the $1,000 future value. Okay, so the equilibrium interest rate is 11.794. The price of the bond is that. The rate, the equilibrium interest rate is that. And the quantity of bonds is that. Hit enter, and everything's good to go. Okay, and then we're going to label it. So this is the demand. That's the supply. That's the equilibrium. That's where they meet. This is the price of This is the price of bonds, and this is the quantity of bonds. And then this right here is the equilibrium quantity, which is 1,427.5. And then the price of the bonds is almost 900. 894.5. So this is the price, the equilibrium price. Okay. We'll go ahead and close that and move on. Okay, so the interest rate in the bond market is that. In Keynes' liquidity preference theory, we're going to replace the I with that interest rate, 11.794. And then just simply solve for money. Okay. So I'm going to paste the interest rate from the bond market there. And then I'm going to copy in the right-hand side of Keynes' demand for money. And then I'm going to rearrange. Add that to both sides, subtract this from both sides. Divide both sides by the 1.8. Okay, so that's what the quantity of money is. I'm going to delete the M. Got to change this to a small dash. So the quantity of money in this market is $9.837 trillion. Okay. Okay, now if I plug this value into my demand equation, if I plug this quantity of money into my demand equation, I get the interest rate that was in the market for money. So let's go ahead and mark this. Let me hit enter here. I love the green boxes. Makes me feel good. We'll go ahead and label the market for money. The market for money price is I. The quantity of money is M. This is the money supply. That's the money demand. Whoops, not a very good D there. Money demand, that's the equilibrium, and the interest rate is right under 12, 11.794. And the quantity of money is 9.837. So that's how you graph the market for money. And the interest rate is the same in the market for money as it is up here. And so you get the price here. When you plug the price into your rate equation, you get an interest rate of that. So they're the same. Okay. So we'll clear it. Okay, now in this situation here, we have expected inflation increasing. So to answer this question, we're going to pull out the Fisher effect. Right? We're going to pull out the Fisher effect. Nominal rate of interest equals the real rate of interest plus expected inflation. And remember, when we're shifting a demand curve, like we are here, we're going horizontally, so we're assuming prices are constant and interest rates are constant. So when the price is constant, this nominal rate of interest is constant. But up here it says if expected inflation increases, right? If that goes up by, say, 2, then R has to go down by 2. So the real rate of interest, the real cost of borrowing, decreases, right? Okay, so we're talking about supply here. So I put the arrow in the wrong spot. Let me erase it here. Okay. So when we're shifting supply, we're going horizontally, which means we're holding the price constant. That's the price right there. We're holding the price constant. We're holding the nominal rate of interest constant. If expected inflation rises, then the real rate of interest will fall. The real cost of borrowing decreases. So if you're supplying bonds, right, you're borrowing, and when the real cost of borrowing falls, you want to borrow more money, right? So the quantity of bonds supplied is decreasing. The quantity supply of bonds is decreasing at any given price. The bond supply thus, increases. The quantity of bonds supplied increases at any given price because you want to borrow more when the real cost of borrowing is falling. Thus, the bond supply increases, and this is the new bond supply, the red one, upward sloping line down here. Okay? So let me go ahead and clear all that, or just close it. So this was decreases. This is increases. Increases. Put enter. Okay. Now, on the demand side, let's do the demand side. On the demand side, when we go horizontally to shift a demand curve, we're holding the price constant, right? Price is being held constant. And then we go back to the Fisher effect. If we're holding the nominal rate of interest constant because the price is constant as we shift this curve and expected inflation increases, again, the real rate of interest decreases. So that's a decrease right there. Okay. Now, if expected inflation is increasing, put this down here. What about the return? What's the expected return? The expected return is next year. We haven't got there yet, right? We're not there yet. So expected return for next year is equal to the coupon payment, right? Divided by the price that has already been paid, right? Plus the gain or loss if it's negative. We'll assume that at the end of the next period, we'll redeem our bond. Okay, so this part here is the gain. Okay, since this has already been paid, this doesn't change. We've paid it, right? We can't go back in time and change the price. If expected inflation increases, that means the buying power of future money has fallen. So the expected value of this, when we account for inflation, will fall. Same with the face value. So our expected return is going to fall, right? So we're going to have a decrease in expected return, which both of these decrease the demand for bonds. Okay? So all three of those answer boxes are decreases. Let me close this out. Decreases, decreases, decreases. And we'll hit enter. Okay? Now we need to get the new equilibrium. We're at this point down here, right? We're at where red equals red. So let me go to Desmos. Let me get the equation here. I'll show you how to get the colors. A fast way to get the colors. You just kind of enter it until red comes back up. And you can go back up and delete these. And so we got the supply curve, the new supply curve there. Now we need to get the new demand curve. And we'll enter until the red curve comes back up. Okay, so this is our new supply curve, and that's our new demand curve, and they intersect right there. So let's go ahead and put our new quantity up here. Whoa, that's weird. The quantity is the same, but the price, quantity is exactly the same, but the price has fallen down to 847.500. That causes the rate to increase to 7.994%. So at our new equilibrium, the price of the bond fell to $847.50. The interest rate increased to 17.994%. And the quantity of the bond is the same as it was before. Whoop. 27.5. Okay, and we'll hit enter to see if we got it correct. And we did. So let's go ahead and label our graph. Okay, this is the new supply curve. This is the new demand curve, and that's our equilibrium, right? Price axis, quantity axis, our initial equilibrium, the initial supply curve, and the initial demand curve. I'm not going to do the subscripts. We'll just, the new demand curve is red. The new supply curve is red. The old demand and supply curves are black. Okay. And then the quantities are both identical at 1,427, right? Correct? The initial price was higher than it is now. And the new price is lower than it was, right? So the price fell, which implies the interest rate rises. Okay? So that's how you'd graph this. Let's go ahead and close that. Okay, so this is the initial demand curve for Keynes's market for money, and that's the initial supply curve for this framework. Down here, what happened here? In Keynes' liquidity preference framework, the increase in inflation increases the demand for money, right? Now, why is that the case? Well, if prices are generally rising and your wages are tied to inflation through some cost of living adjustment, if prices double, right? Say you go to the movies and you don't like credit. You go to the movies once a week. You go to a movie once a week and the price goes from $10 to $20 per movie. Well, if you like going to the movies and you want to continue doing that, then you got to hold either in your wallet or in your checking account via your debit card $10 extra each week. So that's why the demand for money increases when expected inflation increases, right? Okay, so we'll go ahead and enter here. Okay, at the new equilibrium in Keynes' liquidity preference framework, the interest rate is what? Well, if you remember, in the framework here, this interest rate here was equal to the interest rate in the bond market. So this level here is 11.794. right? So this 11.794 is determined by the intersection of demand and supply in the bond market here, with the price being 894.5. That gives an interest rate initially of 11.794, which is this height here, right? At the new equilibrium here, the interest rate is higher. And in Keynes' framework, remember the interest rate on the price of money, right, is going to be the same as the interest rate in the bond market. Okay, so this new interest rate is going to be 11.994. And we can verify that. We can verify by plugging this quantity of money into this demand equation here. So I'll do it down here. So we got the new demand equation right here. Keynes' demand for money. We're going to multiply that by this quantity of money, 9.8365, and we get 7.994. To three decimal places, 17.994, right? And so the next answer is pretty easy. You just got to copy and paste this into here. Let me just make sure. Quantity of money is 9.837. Yeah, 9.837. Yeah, we round this to 3 decimal places, and it's the same as it was initially. 9.837. Hit enter. So let's go ahead and graph this. So this is the new equilibrium. This is the initial, or this is the final money demand. This is money supply before and after. This is money demand now. This is the equilibrium, right? And the interest rate was just under 12, if I remember right. The new interest rate is higher at almost 18. Almost 18, right at 18, right? The quantity of money is 9.837. This is the quantity of money here, right? And this is the price of money, the nominal rate of interest. So the interest rates rose. The interest rate initially in the bond market was 17.794 or 11.794. So just under 12. So interest rates rose, right? Okay. Any questions on that? Let me know. Let me go ahead and close that out, clear it. Okay, now again, the money multiplier here is 1.79. And the Fed's going to do an open market purchase, so it's going to be adding reserves to the banking system by giving banks cash while the banks give the Fed its bonds. So the Fed gives banks money, banks give the Fed bonds. So it's called an open market purchase, and it's a $0.5 trillion. Okay. So let's go ahead and graph. Let's go ahead and kind of. Okay. Okay. Remember the open market purchase, an OMP, is an increase in reserves, an increase of $0.5 trillion. This is a plus. Right? The money multiplier is 1.79. And you multiply those two together to get the increase in M1. So this is the change in reserves. And this down here is a change in M, money. Okay. So let's go over here and calculate it. So the open market purchase was 0.5, and the multiplier is 1.79. When we multiply them together, we get 0.895. So the money supply, we'll go ahead and label it all the way. The money supply increases or rises by this amount right here, $0.895 trillion. And then we got to add the original money supply was 9.837. So the original money supply was, there it is right there. The original money supply was, 9.837. The new money supply is the increase in reserve M1 plus what it was, right? So that's the new money supply. Okay, so the new money supply right here is 10.7. The old money supply was 9.837, right? And the increase in money is 0.895. That's the difference, the horizontal difference between black and red here. Almost 1, right? It's almost 1. So this is 10.7, we'll call it. This is the money supply, I mean the money demand. Whoops. Good thing I got a erase. This is the money demand after the open market purchase. This is the money supply after the open market purchase. Or sorry, this is the money demand that's attributed to the expected inflation increasing. So this is attributed to expected inflation rising, right? And this is money supply due to the open market purchase. And this is the equilibrium, right? Let's change this back to black. Okay, so the initial equilibrium after the increase in expected inflation, this is the original money supply. So the interest rate was higher. So the open market purchase decreases the interest rate. So open market purchase decreases interest rates. Now that should increase investment and consumption, juice it if you will, which would then increase aggregate demand, right? And so you'd want to do this, the Fed wants to do this kind of thing when we're in a recession. Okay, so let's go ahead and enter our information here. So the money supply increases by almost $1 trillion. The new money supply is 10.732. After the Fed conducts the open market purchase, the equilibrium interest rate in Keynes' liquidity preference framework is, right? So we got to plug this red value right here into the red demand equation. So what it is, I'll just copy this down here. Is there something where it's not colored? Okay, get rid of the minus of the long dash. So we're taking the red demand equation that results from the increase in expected inflation, and we're going to substitute in the value of the new money supply, which is 10.732. We're going to plug that into our red demand equation, and we get an interest rate of 16.3822. Okay, so that's this interest rate right here, right? That's this interest rate right here. Okay, what would be the interest rate in the bond market after the open market purchase? Well, again, remember in Keynes's framework, the interest rate in the money market, the market for money, is equal to the interest rate in the bond market. So they would end up equating. Okay. We'll go ahead and hit enter. And we got everything done, so we are done with homework 3B.